this? I don't know if you want to clip this or what, or hold it. Thanks for coming, everybody. We're really excited about this event today. We've been doing a cross-country tour with our delegation from Japan. We started off in Toronto, Montreal, and we have a great turnout here today in Vancouver. So I hope you're as excited about the seminar as we are. My name is Jeff Lettingham. I work at Wavefront, so we're helping organize this whole shindig. But we've had a lot of help. We've got great partners in the Department of Foreign Affairs and the Province of BC's International Business Development and Relations Group. So if I can ask everyone to stand up from either of those two groups that I just mentioned. These folks are here to support any of the endeavors that you have going overseas. So if you have any questions at all about export markets, I'm sure they'd be happy to help you in any way, except for the people that won't stand up and ask. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Hiro Iwao. Hiro is our part of the Trade Commissioner's Service based out of Tokyo, and he's been, I guess, the handler of the Japanese delegates for this week. So I'll turn it over to Hiro. Thank you. Just that you're talking for a long time. Oh, project.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Good morning, everyone. Just in introduce, I'm Hiro Iwao, Trade Commissioner with the Canadian government, DFATE. I'm stationed in the Canadian Embassy in Tokyo. And today we have brought 3 delegates from real-world Japanese businesses, from advertising agency and media agency and gaming company. And we're going to give you 3 presentations. But before getting into those presentations, I just wanted to take this opportunity to give you some tips, some information about the Japanese market and how to do business in Japan. And as a trade commissioner, I worked with the Canadian government for 7 years. And before joining the Canadian Embassy, I worked with the Norwegian government for 5 years, almost with the same function. And even before that, I worked with the Virginian government for 2 years. So that total was approximately over 14 years. I've been assisting overseas companies trying to find opportunities in Japan. And of course, for Japan, as you know, Japan is still one of the largest economic powers in the world. It's still the largest creditor country. It has 235 trillion US dollars in foreign assets, and we still have more than 6 trillion Canadian dollars in GDP. Per capita GDP exceeds 45,000 US dollars. And of course, if you take a look at each sector, there are lots of opportunities for you to think about doing business with. And unfortunately, I have assisted more than 500 overseas companies, just as I said, trying to seek entries in the Japanese market. But lots of those companies were not, unfortunately, not really successful because they have knowledge in their own market, and they know how to handle their own business, but not in Japan. And Japan is the only exception in this world. Japan is very different from the rest of the world. But because the Japanese people cannot adjust so well to how the people outside are doing. And so I'm not going to take too much time on my own presentation. I just want to focus on the actual business presentations from 3 delegates. But just quickly, I'd like to go over what I want to tell you before. Oops. This is something different. How can I change this?
We had the same issue in Montreal.
Yeah.
You did.
How can I do that?
Well, you had two screens.
Oh.
So,
Okay. Yeah. So let's just. I'm not covering all of these topics. Just pick up several relevant ones. Should I? Don't you have any difficulties in seeing? It's okay. All the rest of the presentation, so I'm talking about specific elements of this one. The first one, this is the overall concept. The Japanese people, Japanese companies are always looking at focusing on what is called law, that means harmony. And they try to realize that harmony rather than competition with their own, within themselves and with their own competitors. So let's say, well, if you have a business proposal for one specific Japanese company, and that proposal will be probably beneficial for that company to compete with their own competitors. But still, that company may not respond like, oh, this is good, great, good proposal, we'd like to do this, this is going to give you that. Yeah. They don't respond like this. They try to not to be outstanding, not to be very, very strong in the market. They try to get the largest share of the market, but still they try not to do that so obviously. And so the decisions are always made in that kind of specific mentality. So they try to seek consensus from other people or other persons in their own connections, network. Or within the company, they try to seek consensus from other people from other sections as well. But you can't find one specific person who can decide the company's corporate decision. And always, the Japanese people are stress on the collective effort. That even if one person's job that results in the great success of the company, it's not really natural for that company to praise that one successful person, because that success is not only attributed to that single specific person, but also other people who help, who work with that person. That person might get angry. It's very natural. So they try to say, well, this is if something is successful, then this is attributable to this team, these people, things like that. So, so all I want to say is, well, you can't find one single person who can be very, very effective to make the corporate decisions at one time. And Japan is a weak culture. Most people do not say, I like this. I like this idea, or I like this idea. I like your proposal. This kind of phrase is not coming out so soon. They will say, well, they try to say, we like this. In order to say, we like this, they have to consult with others. So this process takes a long time. And let's say, well, starting with request meetings with a company. You will probably want to talk to the person who is probably your most senior person, or the person who is taking care of that specific product lines. And the top of the person you will try to target. However, that's not quite easy to come up with. You will talk to the person from that company, from that section, and he happens to be taking care of that product, probably the right person to talk with. However, if you ask a meeting request, that person will talk to other related people, associated people from related sections. And this process is not actually visible to your side. So you will never know what's happening in that company. So this is probably the first time you will feel frustrated. And normally it'll take maybe 1 day or 2 days, or maybe 1 hour. You make a phone call or write an email to say, well, I would like to meet with you to talk about our product. I would like to demonstrate. And the answer should be, that shouldn't take too much time in looking at the market. But in Japan, that person who received that request first asked for permission from his own supervisor. And also, he needs to talk with the guys, other people working on very similar products or services that related to each other. And yeah, this takes about 2 days, plus 2 days, 3 days, or maybe a week or 2 weeks to come up with a final decision, whether or not to have a meeting with this person. And so if you request a proposal, you will get the answer. Fortunately, you will get positive feedback from that company. And you will get the meeting appointment. But that's 2 weeks after that you first made that action. And you have a meeting. And after the meeting, during the meeting, there are a couple of things where you might find different things happening. Oops, sorry. You demonstrate well, and you certainly transfer your all information about your products or about your proposal to that company. So the answer should be very much faster. You think, well, it's really kind of a very simple question. Do you like or do you not like? Do you think, well, the Japanese side answer that simple? They understand the logic. They understand the service. They understand the product and how it is beneficial to the company. But they will not answer yes or no so easily. Because, just as I said, they have to take balance, harmony between other components. And this process is very long, much longer than meeting request assessment. So in that case, maybe 1 week from one person. If we are the company, 3 delegates, Shimada-san from Dentsu, and Tony-san from AdTech, and Bridget-san from Breed. And I'm the kind of a coordinator, and I received the request from one of you to work with you. And I have to consult with Shimada-san first. And Shimada-san is always making trips, business trips all over the world. And he doesn't have much time, enough time to look at any proposals so soon. And meanwhile, Tony-san and Bridget-san also have the same situation. So this all takes 1 week for Shimada-san, another 1 week from Tony-san, 1 week for Bridget-san. So totaling 3 weeks or more, or 1 month, or maybe 2 months must be spent in order to get the answers from 3 of them. And if 3 people all agree to go with that project, and maybe I will come back to you and find a decision. It's okay, well, we would like to do business with you. And, but during this several months, you have already frustrated with me. And you will probably started talking with other companies. This is kind of a likely situation in our life. More than a large part of 500 companies that existed so far have more or less similar situations. And there's no relationship actually developed because of that embarrassed situation. If your product is not really urgent to be put in the market, please understand the situation. Please try to imagine something's happening in the Japanese side and wait for 1 or 2 months. So just be prepared to wait for that long period of time to get along with them. And otherwise, you will not be able to make a deal with a Japanese company. And once you start doing business with a Japanese company, and if it goes smooth, the first period takes this time, long period of time. But once the business starts, it's really fast, much faster. And your revenues are much more, growing much fast. But most companies do not come to that point and give up. That's why lots of companies are not really enjoying the actual benefits of doing business with a Japanese company. And always, just as I said, so the person, the Japanese side have to talk to, have consultations with lots of people. You cannot do it with each of the persons from each section. It's really difficult. Maybe you can talk to one person from that company. That one person can be the coordinator, interlocutor that actually communicates with relevant people from each section. And that person, we say, well, that's a middleman. And this middleman will talk to you also. But just as I said, it's very complicated matter. It's complicated situations that are happening in the Japanese side. And this middle person cannot always be able to express what's really happening in his own company. However, still, just because you just heard this story today, please keep this in mind and try to be patient in this regard. And if you come up with a question, what's happening, still, please do not talk to the person who is supervising this middleman. If you skip this person, this middle person will probably lose face. It's called lose face within his own company. His supervisor will not expect to hear directly from the company he is talking with. If that company directly talks to that supervisor will think this guy is not doing enough, or working not seriously, or less efficient. So that middle person simply loses face. He doesn't want to work with you anymore. And you will also not be successful if you talk to that supervisor. Just in case, if you talk to that supervisor, the supervisor does not know the business, actually the services or products actually you are bringing in. So it's always, have to keep in mind that this middle person is the person who knows the product or services or the proposal you are trying to propose. So it's really dangerous to make him lose face if you are in this stage. So please just keep in this mind. So, for example, just as I was said, an example of the one person, middle person, but this applies to the section, the company's section also. Maybe when you're talking to the company's one single section, or a specific section, to go bring your products or services to that company, that section is kind of like a barrier. maybe you think that that section may not be very, very effective for you to actually propose your products to this company. So you will probably seek another different departments or sections to bring your products more efficient. Because you are doubting that that section may not be the right place to be done. But if that section is, that section promised to say, well, we will work on your file, we work on your case, and we will coordinate. Then please stick to that. Otherwise, that section will lose face. There are lots of people lose face. So more serious. And if you're talking to Japanese people, this is another aspect of Japanese people's behavior. This is a worldwide phenomenon. It's not really specific to the Japanese person, but these are more strong apparent characteristics of Japanese people. It's called honne and tatemae. And honne is, the tatemae is a kind of public face. And if you talk to a specific person, that person will not actually will tell the truth. If your product or if your proposal is not really interesting, but this person will not say so clearly. He may say, oh yes, it's interesting, but if he doesn't say anything more, that means it's not interesting. The idea is like this. And so that actual feeling part is called honne. And how these are actually what happening in the actual society is some obvious situations you might encounter is the yes or no problem. The yes for Japanese means not really yes. Of course, actually yes, it's positive, but not always actually agreeing with you. And they will not often say no. Instead of saying no, they will say yes, and without saying anything. So it's kind of tricky for you to read his own, actually read his mind. It's really, really effectively getting the response from that person or not. And so this is some of the answers to that. If they say, well, if you ask for feedback from the Japanese person, they will say maybe, well, I will think about it. At the end of your meeting, okay, we will think about it. This means 80% of the times they are not interested. But they can't say so. If they say, well, I don't like you, it's a big, it's not really harmony. They're trying to seek harmony in this setting, atmosphere itself. So they don't want to make that kind of provocative word. So they will say, I will think about it, but no commitment. And next we'll take the sentence, well, I will give it a serious study, but still no promise. So that means nothing, maybe 50%, it's not good. And I will do my best. And it's also a no commitment. It's so easy to say, I'll do my best to get feedback from other sections, get feedback from the company. But still, it's not a big promise. So you think that this is just probably less than 50% success, less than 50% success chance. And so if the Japanese highest decision is really, really yes, then what will happen? have any ideas what would be the possible feedback from Japanese side if they really want to do business with you?
They'll ask you for more information or details.
Exactly, that's the case. They will more actively ask questions or speak much more, saying something more specifically. And we will come back to you maybe next week. And I have this person to talk with. And this person is not, today he's not available, but he probably will come back next week, and I will talk to him, and we'll come back to you. This is very important. I really like it. It's something more passionate. So that passion is the kind of sign that you should really, really rely on, and seek for that kind of specific sign. So that's one information for you to keep in mind. And before coming into this point, I would like to come back to this point. Yes or no? Yes or no? I talked about the actual context of the yes or no problem, but grammatically, Japanese have different expression systems in their own vocabulary, grammatical system. Yes sometimes means, actually grammatically, no. Let's say, well, today it's not raining, actually. It's cloudy, but it's not raining. But if I ask you a question, is it raining? The answer will be, no, it's not. No, it isn't. It's not raining. If I ask you a question like, isn't it raining? Your answer might be, maybe a little different, the same. No, it's not. No, it's not raining. For Japanese, they always will looking at the sentence itself. So if you ask, isn't it raining? That isn't part should be negated first. So it's not raining. So isn't it raining? And Japanese answer will be, yes, it's not raining. That's the kind of the phrase that comes up naturally from their own brain. So of course, they speak in Japanese, and they have to translate that in English. So that everything confuses that person. So let's say if you ask a question like, "Are you happy with this deal?" And if the Japanese person likes it, yes, I do. Yes, I am. I'm happy with this deal. If you ask a question like, "You aren't unhappy with this deal, are you?" What's the answer? In North American terms, it should be no. You are looking at the context of this sentence. You are not unhappy. So no, you might come up with no. But for Japanese, you have to say, well, yes. Of course, I'm not, you are right. Yes, you are right. I'm not unhappy. So to avoid this situation, please try to focus on simple questions, simple as possible. Try to avoid any negative questions like these examples. And I don't want to take too much time on my own presentations. And okay, let's go talk about this. And some of you may know that Japanese people behave like it very politely, and that polite attitude is just a norm in Japan. And even if it's not really impolite, but if what you are doing is seen as impolite, that will be not quite beneficial.